I think wishes are great. They tap into a part of our soul that reminds us that we're co-creators, right? But I think with wishes, we have to, think it all out and see what it's about to help bring them to fruition.
Hello, and welcome to the Constance Messmer podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Hello, my name is Constance Messmer, and I'm a transformational speaker. I am trying to make the mystic mainstream and make psychic a common word. It's about soul interactions that I work mostly in. I go beyond the physical senses and encourage you to tune into the senses of your soul so that you might use them to navigate your own life, realms of spirit, and your world. I am excited that you're here. You are listening to the Constance Messmer podcast. So, we have gone through mental embellishments and projections, and I want to tell you one other arena that you need to be aware of if you're doing work for yourself in regards to sitting with spirit, but also mostly if you're doing reads for other people. Sometimes when you look into other people's auric fields, you might come across a wish, and you have to be very cautious in how you relay that information. The best example I could give you is that if you are reading for someone and you see a baby in their field or a small child in their field, and you mistake that as you're going to have a baby when it's actually a wish for a baby. So it could be better relayed when you see this child in their energy field. It could be better relayed by just saying, I am seeing children around you or a baby around you. Do you understand that? You don't want them to say much more. You need to do the work. So perhaps they'll say yes. Say, I don't, and if you don't know, you could ask your higher self, or you could ask their soul, is this a wish or is this part of their soul path? And you could also look into their soul and their Akashic records to see if they're meant to have children in this lifetime, or if this is just a wish, or if it's actually something that is coming soon to them. So the cool thing about reading wishes and discerning them separate from truth is because it's at least telling you you're really tapped into what's happening right around them and what their desires are. But you just want to be very careful that you're not misreading and misleading. So often when I see, especially a hot topic like children around someone, I might see it as a wish coexisting as a potential future, right? But oftentimes then I have to, when I'm recognizing it as a wish because it's so attached to them, like it's a very fine line because sometimes the soul's attached to them. But typically if it's a baby or a child that's really connected to them, you also have to discern, is this a child that is past, right? So you have to sort through, is this a child that is past? Is this a child that is coming? Is this a wish? Is this, what's happening here? And so oftentimes, if you kind of pull out of the information and look around, you can actually, wait for it, if it's a future potential, you can actually see the soul in spirit world, ready to connect or close in the area as a light, as a beam of light, or as an energy frequency of light. I remember one time in particular, a woman had come to me really distraught and sad because she had tried a couple rounds of in vitro, and her and her husband really wanted children. And she, when she came in, I saw her surrounded by children, and she kind of giggled. And I just said, listen, this is, you've got a real thing with kids, right? And what came from that was this awareness of a past life that she had done where she was in charge of an orphanage, a children's home. And she was wonderful at it, just wonderful. They were, in a way, all her children. And I don't recall, but I don't think she had birthed any children in that incarnation. It was really her being this beautiful soul that everyone could call, kind of relate to as a mother. All these displaced children or kids that were without family. And so that was really cool. But as the story went on and I kind of pulled back, I gave her opportunity to actually ask anything that she had come with as questions. Now, mind you, I don't think anything came up in that reading about her wanting children or having children or getting children or anything like that. But she said, can you tell me about kids? We've gone through a couple rounds of in vitro, and now I'm thinking maybe we should adopt. And as an adoptive mother, I'm always like, yeah, woohoo, there's tons of kids. Please adopt. If that resonates with your soul, adopt, form your family that way. But when I looked at her, I was immediately presenting that to spirit, not just her soul, but to the greater kind of arena of reality around her, so that it opened up my field of view to beyond her and not just from her. And I said, you could adopt if you want, but it was pretty amazing. Like 3 souls started coming, like 3 energetic beings of light started coming into my awareness from way far away, from spirit realm, because I was really focused in on her, psychically reading the energy in her body, kind of trying to tune in, would her body carry a child, all this stuff. But these 3 beings of light came through as I shifted my awareness to all around me. And I said, you could adopt, most certainly, but you could try one more round of in vitro, because these kids are coming. They're meant to be coming. So I don't know, it's multiple births. So it really felt to me that because there were no multiples in her family, that it would be an in vitro path and not necessarily a natural path necessarily. So it was really fascinating. And sure enough, later on, she had done the in vitro, she and her husband, and they had twins, boy and a girl. So it was really beautiful. And I say that because the information came at such an interesting, faraway angle compared to, when I've seen kids around other people within their auric field. So it's tricky when they show up in the auric field. It's like, are they loved ones that have crossed? Are they potential children in the future? Are they a wish? These are things you're going to have to discern in the sitting. And sometimes you can ask the little spirit there, like, who are you? How do you know them? You can tune into them. Sometimes your wise self will be able to navigate that experience, and you'll just know. It'll come as claircognizance, knowing. And then, but I've had really tricky things, right? I've had really tricky things come through in regards to, like, this is my mom, this is my mom, this is my mom. And then the mom is like, I can't have children. And I'm like, well, I don't know if you're interested in adopting or fostering as a foster parent or something, because I know that there's this pull towards kids and there's this child waiting. And so, those are always tricky for me when people come and want those kind of things, tell me what to do. I will never tell people what to do. I'm like, listen, this is your journey. This is your free will choices. Here's potential futures. You have to weigh it out, You have to weigh it out. You have to make the choices for you. I can tell you what's ripe. And sometimes I can, I definitely know, like, oh, this is going to happen or that's going to happen. And I'll say, do you want to know? And, so far so good. I think a couple of times with the child wishes, though, they've been wishes And that was hard for me to go back and say, I think I got that wrong. I think that was such a huge wish. And the only way is not naturally, but through adoption. And then they've, there's people that I know that have chosen not to adopt or foster. They just really wanted, quote unquote, their own child. And so I get that. We have free will. We get to do what we want. I think that's the predominant way that I've experienced people's wishes within their field when I've done reads. I have had people come to say, will they ever pop the question, will they ever ask me to marry them? And usually I get the answer because it flies into my awareness way out in, left field as a ring or something. And so I know that it's coming. But I've never, I hate doing those. I hate doing those because I remember with the woman especially that was like, will he ever ask me to marry him? I said, you ask him. If you really love him, ask him. Break the mold. Break the mold. So I think that when you get wishes or you get those parts where people want the wishes truth, you have to watch it. You have to watch it. You have to tread lightly and consciously because, you want to continue doing the work for yourself and for spirit. And the only way that'll happen is if you have integrity in the work. I'm sure those of you out there that are listening might have your own experiences and your own solutions. For me, there's a lot of things. I don't usually throw light at the baby to see if they'll stick around and they're real. I usually try to source out a different way, like going higher up or looking at the person's Akashic records, or asking the child. Asking the child. But sometimes, you have to wonder if it's so animated, maybe it too is a projection. So I'm just telling you, exposing you to the fact that these things can happen in these arenas of that realm of reading for people. Or I don't think I've ever had it in doing a sitting for myself. I'm pretty in touch with what I wish for and whether or not I want to manifest it in my life. I'm good at manifesting, really good. And if something's not coming that I really want, then I have to sit and source it with my soul and figure out why is it taking so long or what's holding it back? And so those of you that are listening to this one that have had wishes or had your wishes read by someone or are dealing with your own wishes and trying to have them become a reality, I encourage you to sit and, say, what's this about? What's going on? Like, if you do a read, definitely, what's this about? What happened? What was that about? What was my lesson to learn about that? I read that as a true thing and it was a wish, help me sort that. Asking for the highest truth to help you sort that, or your incredible wise self that's capable of a million things. With yourself, when you're coming across something that you really wish for and it's not coming, it's not materializing, and you're trying every which way to manifest, I would sit with yourself and say, this is a wish and I've put it up to the universe and it's not happening. And so what's that about? Am I holding it at bay? I know a lot of times in my life, especially with my work, I've held things at bay because I really am not ready. And so when I sit down and I say, listen, I've got this wish that I've put out to you, all my helpers in spirit, and it's not happening fast enough. They're like, listen, we have to get everything kind of in motion. It's not just you, it's a lot of other factors coming around. And then also when it comes to be, it's got to have a place to land. It's got to be, well received. Otherwise you'll be shot down or it won't happen. And then you'll think, oh, I've failed, or I didn't do it, or I let myself down, or it was me, when it's just the timing, right? Divine right timing. I think there is something in that. I think we can push the divine right timing sometimes. I know I have. But I think when it comes to desires of our heart, like wishes, and really wanting them, we need to sit and figure it out. I know myself in my own journey, full disclosure, we tried in vitro and that. And later on, I found I had some weird, like antigen E that made it tricky and all that stuff. So, but also true, I was like, you know what, my kids, the stork brought them to the wrong house. I knew I wanted children, and I was like, where are you? And then we found them, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting goosebumps now. That's nice, because I wouldn't mind carrying a child at that age when I was younger, but like labor pains, no thanks. Even though they say you forget them. Worked out. It worked out. I always said I wouldn't mind having a child as long as they came out at 5. I love babies, don't get me wrong. I love them. I love them. But I was just like, I know how I am. And so the youngest we adopted was 5. We adopted older kids. So I think we can work with our wishes and make it happen in a way that works for us, right? But I think we need to enter into spaces so that we can have a relationship with them, to find out, what's happening. Why isn't it happening soon enough? What do we need to do to kind of course correct or rejig it or, refigure it or whatever? And then definitely with others, when we're reading wishes, kind of help them navigate that space too, right? And whether or not we're getting that the wish is going to come to fruition, we can offer them the advice of, I feel this is really heavy around you, otherwise I wouldn't be seeing it, right? And so I'm bringing it up for you to consider, to look at, to kind of reconsider how the wish can come to be. A lot of times, for me, a wish comes, but it's not at all in the way I thought it would be, right? And it's fine. It's usually better. So sometimes when we lock into, we need to have it this way, and sometimes complications arrive, and that's not the way it's capable of coming. We need to decide, are we still willing to have the experience, even though it's not necessarily exactly as we're wanting. So, wishes. Sometimes you can see them in people's energy fields, and if you do, you have to be careful. Read them as a wish, if you can recognize it as a wish, and only read it as a potential future if it is also presenting as such. And how can you tell the difference? I source other places. How can you tell the difference? How do you do it? I source other places. Sometimes engaging in conversation with the child helps you understand what the child is representing and what the child is about, especially if it's a child. That's going to be the example that I'm using. But if you engage with the wish to kind of source it out or suss it up, that will give you more of an indication. And certainly you could, lift the awareness of it up higher to say, is this a wish? Is this a projection? Is this a potential future? And see how that goes, see how that feels, see how the answer comes back to you. Journal it, for your own awareness to how the nuances of vibrational and communication and spirit realm work with you, and soul senses and soul awareness. Always good to journal so you can remember. So I'm asking if there's any other thing I should mention about wishes. And I'm telling them, I hope my microphone's on. I'm using my old mic so that you can hear me better. Yeah. I think wishes are great. They tap into a part of our soul that reminds us that we're co-creators, right? But I think with wishes, we have to, think it all out and see what it's about to help bring them to fruition. I've come across women that are really incredible women, or men that are incredible men that want children, but they want to partner with it. And sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, right? Sort that out too. I know some incredible single parents. Incredible. So, anyway, you've been listening to the Constance Messmer podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Legally speaking, this podcast is presented solely for educational, spiritual, and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for medical diagnosis, treatment, or the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat a health problem or condition. Always check with your doctor. Thank you.